Connecting ideas, the art of better writing. Introduction. Have you ever read something that felt wonderful? Where ideas seemed to move together, one after another, so smoothly that you felt carried along. It's like a beautiful song for your thoughts, easy to follow and very pleasing. On the other hand, have you ever tried to read something that felt like a bunch of separate thoughts, like a pile of sentences that made you wonder how they were meant to go together? We all want our words to join up, to be understood, and to make a difference, whether we are writing an email, a school report, or sharing our ideas online. Being able to communicate clearly is a great skill, and there is a way to make your writing stand out. Sometimes, when we write, our sentences can feel like small, separate islands. We have one idea, then another, and we write them down one by one. But without something to join them, they don't create a path between them. Imagine a train where each car is good by itself, but there are no hooks to connect them. It's hard to go anywhere. This is what happens when writing doesn't have those important links. For example, look at this. The sky got dark. It began to rain. We ran inside. We got wet. Each sentence tells us something, but they feel sudden, don't they? The person reading has to do all the work to imagine how one event leads to the next. This choppy style can make writing seem less clear, harder to follow, and can make your reader feel tired or confused. It's as if the writer has all the parts of a puzzle but hasn't shown us how they fit. But what if there was a simple, yet very strong, way to build those paths? What if a few well-chosen words could change those separate islands into a smooth, flowing land of ideas? This is what this book is about. Linking words. Think of linking words as the special glue that holds your writing together. They are small, but powerful words and phrases that act like helpful signs, guiding your reader from one thought to the next. They show the reader how your ideas are connected, if they are alike, if one happens because of another, or if they are different. Learning to use specific linking words like however, therefore, and although is key to making your English writing smoother, more interesting, and more advanced by joining ideas well and building longer sentences. Let's look at that earlier example again with a few linking words. Although the sky got dark, we ran inside. Therefore, it began to rain. However, we got wet. See how much clearer and more connected that feels? The word although shows a difference, therefore shows a result, and however shows another difference or a surprise. These words don't just connect sentences, they add deeper meaning and make your writing much more interesting. This book will help you use these amazing connectors to their fullest. By learning to use linking words well, you will see how to make your writing flow nicely, like a calm river instead of a series of small, bumpy puddles. You will be able to explain even difficult ideas very clearly, making sure your reader understands exactly what you mean. People reading your work will find it more interesting and easier to follow, keeping them involved from the beginning to the end. Most importantly, your writing will sound more advanced and have more power, showing you are good at using language. You will feel more sure of your ability to share your thoughts clearly and with influence. This is not just about learning a few new words, it's about understanding the skill of connection, the quiet magic that turns normal sentences into writing that grabs your attention. In the sections to come, we will go on a trip to explore the great world of linking words. We will look at different kinds of connectors, understand what each one does, and see them used with many clear examples. We will also practice using them so you can easily add them to your own writing tools. You will learn to notice the small differences between words that might seem alike, so you can pick the best word for the right moment. Get ready to change your writing, making it flow better, be easier to understand, and much more interesting, one connection at a time. Let's start making your writing better together. 1. Using special words to connect sentences. I remember a time, not so long ago, when my writing felt like a mess of puzzle pieces. I had good ideas, I thought, but putting them on paper was hard. My sentences often felt sudden. One thought would end and a new one would just pop up with no warning. It was like talking to someone who keeps changing the subject without saying anything. My teachers would gently say that my writing didn't flow well and my points weren't always clear. For a while, I didn't understand why. I used words, I made sentences, but the joy of joining them, of making them sound good together, was missing. It wasn't until I found a secret, a simple but very powerful secret, that my writing started to change. This secret is about using special words, small words that act like bridges, guiding your reader smoothly from one idea to the next. These aren't just any words. They are the quiet heroes of clear and interesting writing. Think about how you talk to a friend. You don't just say one thing after another, do you? You use phrases like and then, or, but you see, or so. What happened was these little connectors help your friend follow your story. Writing is very similar, and these special connecting words are the key to making your written words work just as well. We call them linking words. So, what are these magical linking words? At their core, they are small, but strong words that act like bridges. They connect ideas, sentences, and even whole paragraphs. Imagine you are building a path across a small river. You wouldn't just throw rocks anywhere. You would build a strong bridge to make it easy and safe to cross. Linking words do the same for your writing. They show the reader how different parts of your text are related. For example, the word however tells your reader that what comes next will be different, a new point of view. The word therefore signals that a result or what happened next is about to be explained, and although prepares the reader for an idea that might seem a little surprising after what was just said. Using these words is like giving your reader a map, showing them exactly where you are going and how you are getting there. It helps your writing flow better, makes your sentences more interesting and complex, and most importantly, it helps the reader understand how your ideas are connected. They are very important tools if you want to build writing that is both clear and smart. One of the first and most obvious good things about using linking words is the smoother flow they create. Without them, your writing can feel jerky, like a series of short, separate statements. It's like listening to music with no rhythm or tune. It's just noise. Linking words are the rhythm and tune of your writing. They stop those sudden changes in topic that can make a reader feel confused or lost. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine these two sentences. The weather was beautiful. We decided to have a picnic. These sentences are okay, but they feel a bit apart. They don't quite join together. Now, let's add a linking word. We can use so to show that the picnic was a result of the beautiful weather. The weather was beautiful, so we decided to have a picnic. See how much smoother that is? The word so acts as a little bridge, clearly showing that the second sentence happened because of the first. It makes the connection obvious and natural. Or think about this. I love reading books. My brother prefers watching movies. Again, these are two separate facts. But what if we want to show that these are different choices? We can use but to show a difference. I love reading books, but my brother prefers watching movies. The word but immediately tells the reader that a difference is coming. It helps them understand that you are showing two different ideas. This smooth flow isn't just about making your writing sound nice. It makes it much easier for people to read and understand. When your ideas move easily from one to the next, The reader can focus on what you are saying instead of trying to figure out how your thoughts are connected. It's like a gentle river carrying them along, rather than a series of rough spots they have to get through. Besides just making things flow, linking words are also key to building more interesting and smart sentences. Often, when we are starting, we write many short, simple sentences. This is perfectly fine for basic communication. However, to express more complex thoughts and to make our writing more interesting, we need to learn how to join these shorter sentences into longer, more detailed ones. Linking words are the tools that let us do this well. They help us show the relationships between ideas in more detail. Instead of just stating facts, we can use linking words to explain why things happened, how they are alike or different, or what the results are. This adds depth and detail to our writing. Let's take our picnic example again. The weather was beautiful, so we decided to have a picnic. This is good, but we can make it even more descriptive and smart. What if we wanted to show how beautiful the weather was and then show that because of this great beauty, the picnic was a natural choice? We could use a linking word like consequently or therefore to show a stronger cause and effect. The weather was exceptionally beautiful. Consequently, we decided to have a picnic in the park. Here, consequently suggests a stronger, more logical result. The sentence is longer, it joins two different ideas, and it uses a linking word to clearly show their relationship. It sounds more thoughtful, more polished. Or let's look again at the reading versus movies example. I love reading books, but my brother prefers watching movies. This is a clear difference. But what if we want to show that even though one person loves reading, the other person has a completely different, perhaps surprising, choice? We can use although to introduce an idea that might seem to go against the main point. Although I find great joy in reading books, my brother's passion is watching movies. This sentence is much more complex. It uses although to set up a difference between two very different activities, and it uses more descriptive words. The linking word lets us weave these two different ideas into one, richer sentence that tells a more detailed story. By using these words, we go beyond just stating facts to explaining the detailed connections between them, making our writing more interesting and showing a deeper understanding of our topic. In the end, all of this, the smooth flow, the more complex sentences, is about the reader's experience. Linking words are not just for the writer, they are a gift to the reader. They act like signs, like helpful guides that light up the path of your argument. When you use linking words well, you are basically telling your reader, here's what I just said, and here's how it connects to what I'm about to say. Pay attention to this connection because it's important for understanding my point. This clarity reduces confusion. It makes it much easier for your reader to follow your thinking. They don't have to stop and guess what you mean or how one idea relates to another. The linking word does that work for them. Think about reading a difficult instruction manual or a challenging academic paper. If the author uses linking words well, you can understand the information much more easily. You understand the steps in a process, the reasons why things happened, or the comparison between two ideas. This ease of understanding builds trust. When a reader feels they can easily follow your logic, they are more likely to believe what you are saying. They see you as someone who communicates clearly, someone who respects their time and intelligence. Let's consider the questions that come from this. Why is it important for a reader to understand how ideas in a piece of writing are connected? Understanding how ideas are connected is the very basis of understanding. Without it, writing becomes a jumble of words, a collection of separate facts that don't make a complete whole. For the reader, understanding these connections is what allows them to create meaning. It's how they go from simply reading words on a page to truly understanding the writer's message, their argument, or their story. When connections are clear, the reader can see the why behind your statements. They can follow the logical steps of your thoughts, understand cause and effect, and see how different pieces of information fit together to form a complete picture. This is especially important in writing that tries to persuade or inform. If a reader doesn't see how your proof supports your point, or how one idea leads to a conclusion, they are unlikely to be convinced or learn anything. The connections are the threads that weave your ideas into a beautiful picture. When these threads are strong and visible, the reader can appreciate the beauty and detail of the whole design. On the other hand, weak or missing connections leave the reader with a confusing experience, and your message is lost. Also, understanding connections helps the reader get more involved with the material. It allows them to guess what might come next, to compare and contrast different ideas, and to form their own opinions based on the relationships you have shown. It changes passive reading into an active process of discovery. This deeper involvement is what makes writing memorable and impactful. It's the difference between a reader finishing your piece and thinking, okay, I read that, and thinking, wow, I really understand that now and it makes me think differently. How do specific linking words, like however and therefore, change the meaning or relationship between two ideas that would otherwise be separate? These words are not just for decoration. They actively change the meaning and how the ideas they connect seem to relate to each other. Let's take the word however. Imagine two sentences. 1. The team practiced hard every day. 2. They lost the championship game. Without a linking word, these two facts sit next to each other. They might suggest irony or sadness, but the relationship isn't clearly stated. Now let's add however. The team practiced hard every day. However, they lost the championship game. Suddenly, the relationship is clear. However, signals a strong difference. It tells the reader that even though they worked hard, the result was the opposite of what might have been expected. It highlights that the loss was unexpected, suggesting a problem, a setback, or a surprising turn of events. The meaning changes from two separate facts to a situation where effort did not lead to the desired outcome, creating a more complex and often more interesting story. Now, consider therefore. Let's use a similar situation. 1. The team practiced hard every day. 2. They won the championship game. Again, two facts. But what if we want to show that the practice directly led to the win? We use therefore. The team practiced hard every day. Therefore, they won the championship game. Here, therefore shows a direct result or what happened because of something. It shows a cause and effect relationship. The second sentence is presented not just as another fact, but as the logical result of the first. The meaning is changed from two separate statements to a clear showing of success achieved through hard work. The reader understands that the practice was the reason for the victory. These words are incredibly precise. They don't just connect. They explain the kind of connection. A word like moreover or furthermore adds information, suggesting that the next idea builds on the previous one. In contrast shows differences. For example, signals an illustration. Each word has its own specific meaning, its own subtle instruction to the reader about how to understand the information that follows. Mastering these words means mastering the ability to guide your reader's understanding with precision and clarity, making your writing not just understandable, but truly insightful. Now that we understand why. 2. Making writing better and smoother. There was a time when my own writing felt like a pile of separate things. I had thoughts, but putting them on paper was hard. My sentences often stood alone like islands in a sea of words. I thought the reader must have felt like they were hopping from one island to another, not sure how they all fit. It was like trying to follow a story where someone kept starting new talks without finishing the old ones. I remember one paper for a class. I had done my research and had ideas, but when I looked at what I wrote, it was just broken. Sentence after sentence, each one saying something, but none of them seemed to talk to each other. It felt plain, not interesting, and a little confusing. I knew I was missing a way to make my thoughts move smoothly, to lead the person reading from one idea to the next without them getting lost or bored. This is where the magic of what we call linking words comes in. These are small words, often ignored, but they are the secret ingredient that turns a pile of separate thoughts into a smooth, flowing river of ideas. Think of them as tiny, helpful guides. They don't just join your sentences, they tell the reader how those sentences are joined. They show how one idea is related to the next. Without them, your writing can feel like a list of separate statements. With them, your writing becomes a conversation, a journey where each step naturally leads to the next. Imagine you were telling someone about your day. You might say, I woke up early. I had breakfast. I went to work. These are all true statements, but they don't paint a very clear picture, do they? They are like single photos. Now, let's add some linking words. I woke up early and I had breakfast. Then I went to work. See how much smoother that is? The N joins the first two actions, showing they happen together or one after the other. The then clearly shows the next step in time. It is a small change, but it makes a big difference in how easy and nice it is to follow along. These linking words are the builders of flow. They build bridges between your ideas, letting your reader move from one point to another without tripping. When sentences are just placed next to each other without any connection, the reader has to do all the work of figuring out how they are related. They have to guess if the next sentence is an example, a difference, a reason, or a result. This can be tiring and can even cause confusion. Linking words take that job away. They are like clear signs on a path, telling the reader, this next idea is related to the last one in this specific way. This makes your writing not only easier to read, but also more enjoyable. It creates a rhythm, a musicality that keeps the reader interested. Let's look closer at how these bridges work. When you have two ideas that are alike, or happen one after another, you can join them with words like and or also. For example, the sun was shining and the birds were singing. This simply joins two nice things seen. Or she enjoys reading. Also, she loves painting. Here, also tells us that painting is another thing she enjoys, besides reading. It is a simple connection, showing that the second idea adds to the first. But linking words do more than just add things together. They show differences too. Think about the word but. It is a strong little word that signals a change or an opposite. Think about these two sentences. He wanted to go to the park. It started to rain. If you just put them together like that, it feels a bit sudden. The reader might wonder, so, did he still go? Now add but. He wanted to go to the park, but it started to rain. Suddenly, the connection is clear. The rain is stopping his plan. The but creates a tension, a small problem between what he wanted and what happened, making this sentence more interesting and showing more about the situation. Another way linking words add depth is by showing why something happened and what resulted from it. When one thing happens because of another, we can use words like therefore, so, or consequently. Let's say you notice that your plants are drooping. You might think the plants are not getting enough water. They are drooping. If you join these with therefore, it becomes, the plants are not getting enough water, therefore, they are drooping. The therefore clearly shows that the drooping is a direct result of not enough water. It explains the reason behind what you see. This kind of connection helps the reader understand the order of your thoughts and the reasoning behind your conclusions. When reading writing that does not have these connecting words, the reader often feels a sense of suddenness. Each sentence can feel like a separate order, a new instruction to understand without a clear link to what came before. This can lead to confusion, especially if the ideas are complicated. The reader might have to stop often, trying to figure out the connections themselves. It is like trying to follow a map where all the roads are clearly marked, but there are no signs telling you which way to go. You can see the roads, but you don't know where they lead in relation to each other. This lack of smooth movement can also make the writing feel less advanced. It can sound very simple, like a list of facts rather than a well-thought-out argument or a captivating story. Adding linking words directly fixes these problems. They create that smooth movement, that feeling of gentle direction. They help the reader understand what the writer wants to emphasize. For example, if you say, "The project was difficult. We finished it on time," it is a simple statement. But if you say, "The project was difficult, however, we finished it on time," the however points out the success. It admits the difficulty but highlights the success even though of that difficulty. The writer's intention to show strength and accomplishment comes through much more strongly. The linking word does not just connect. It shapes the meaning and guides the reader's attention. These words are also very important for building more complicated and interesting sentences. Instead of writing many short, simple sentences, we can join them using linking words to express more complex ideas. Look at this. The old house stood on a hill. It was covered in ivy. It looked spooky. We can join these into something like, the old house stood on a hill and covered in ivy. It looked spooky. Or even, the old house stood on a hill because it was covered in ivy. It looked spooky. The second version uses because to show a direct reason for its spooky look. We have taken 3 choppy sentences and made one more descriptive and layered sentence, all thanks to the power of linking words. This ability to join ideas allows for a richer, more detailed way to express thoughts and observations. The rhythm of writing is just as important as the words themselves. When sentences are all the same length and structure, the writing can become boring. Linking words help us change our sentence structure. They let us join shorter sentences to make longer ones, or to introduce a different idea after a series of similar statements. This change keeps the reader's attention. It is like listening to music with a good beat and melody. The changes in speed and tune keep it interesting. Without linking words, writing can feel flat, like a drumbeat that never changes. With them, it gains a natural flow that draws the reader in. Let's go back to that essay I struggled with. I had a part about the reasons for a historical event, and then another part about its results. Without linking words, it was like, the king raised taxes. People were unhappy. There was unrest. Then the next part would start. The unrest led to protests. Protests grew larger. The government reacted. It was 2 separate blocks of information. When I learned to use linking words, I could connect them. I could write, the king raised taxes, which made the people unhappy. Consequently, there was unrest. Then, I could link that to the results. This unrest led to protests, and as these protests grew larger, the government reacted. See how that flows? The which connects the tax increase to the unhappiness. The consequently shows the result of that unhappiness. This refers back to the unrest, and that and joins the growing protest to the government's reaction. My essay suddenly felt like a story, a series of events rather than just a list of facts. The beauty of linking words is that they are not just about making writing sound fancy, they are about making it clearer. They give the reader a map. When you use a word like although, you are signaling that what comes next will be something that is different from or agrees with a previous point. For instance, although the test was difficult, she felt confident. This tells the reader right away that a difference is coming, the difficulty of the test versus her feeling of confidence. The although prepares the reader for this comparison, making the meaning much sharper than if you simply wrote, the test was difficult. She felt confident. The latter leaves the reader to wonder if her confidence was wrong or if she somehow managed the difficulty. The although makes it clear that she was confident even though of the difficulty, which is a much more specific and interesting idea. When we look at how a specific linking word changes the connection between two sentences that were separate before, we can see its power in action. Take these sentences. The team practiced every day. They lost the game. Without a connector, they are just two facts. But if we add despite, we get the team practiced every day. Despite this, they lost the game. The word despite completely changes the connection. It introduces something unexpected or ironic. It points out the effort made and then contrasts it with the sad outcome. This shows the writer's intention to highlight the team's hard work and the unfortunate result, perhaps suggesting bad luck or a problem that could not be foreseen. The writer is not just stating facts. They are guiding the reader to understand those facts in a certain way, showing a deeper meaning and perhaps even a bit of sympathy or frustration. In the same way, consider the effect of adding a linking word to show agreement. If you have two ideas like, the movie was long and the movie was boring, you might simply list them. But if you use although, you can say, although the movie was long, it was not boring. Here, the although signals that the second part of the sentence will offer something different from the first. It acknowledges the possible negative, the length, but then provides a positive, it was not boring. This shows a more balanced and thoughtful judgment. The writer is not just making a simple statement, they are presenting a detailed opinion, showing they have thought about different parts of the movie. This careful connection between ideas makes the writing feel more considered and advanced. The role of linking words in building more complicated sentences is also about being efficient and graceful. Instead of putting together many simple sentences, which can feel like a child wrote them or seem not very smart, we can use linking words to create sentences that are both longer and more meaningful. For example, instead of, the cat sat on the mat, it was watching the mouse. The mouse was very small. We can create something like, the cat sat on the mat, watching the mouse that was very small. Here, we have used a word describing action watching and a word that refers back that to join these into a more smooth and descriptive sentence. That connects the mouse directly to its description. This creates a more lively picture and shows a better command of sentence structure. It lets us put more information and detail into a single sentence, making the writing more interesting and less repetitive. In the end, the goal of using linking words is to make your writing better and smoother. They are the tools that let you guide your reader to show them the connections between your thoughts, and to build a story that is. 3. Importance of words like however, therefore, and although. There was a time, not so long ago, when I was trying to explain to my younger cousin, Leo, how to bake his first cake. Leo is a bright kid, full of energy, but sometimes he gets a bit scattered. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, a recipe book open between us, and I started explaining. First, I said, you need to preheat the oven. It's important because the cake needs to bake at the right temperature. Then I moved on. Next, you mix the flour and sugar. You have to be gentle. I kept going, listing ingredient after ingredient, step after step. Leo just stared at me, his brow furrowed. He grabbed the flour, then looked at the sugar, then back at me, a little lost. So, he finally asked, do I put the flour in before the sugar or after? And why does the oven need to be hot first? I realized then that I hadn't really connected my ideas for him. I just listed them out. My instructions were like a string of separate beads, not a beautiful necklace. Each instruction was fine on its own, but Leo couldn't see how they fit together. He was missing the pathways between my thoughts. This is exactly what happens in writing when we don't use the right words to link our ideas. We end up with sentences that feel like separate islands, and the reader has to do all the work of figuring out how they relate. It can be confusing, and it definitely doesn't make for smooth reading. Think of those words like however, therefore, and although. They might seem small, but they are incredibly powerful. They are the bridges that connect your thoughts, guiding your reader gently from one idea to the next. Without them, your writing can feel choppy, like a bumpy road. With them, your writing becomes a smooth, flowing river, carrying your reader along with your ideas. Let's start with words that show contrast or introduce a different viewpoint. Words like however and although are brilliant for this. Imagine you're writing about why exercise is good for you. You might say, exercise is fantastic for your health. It helps you feel more energetic and can improve your mood. This is great. But what if you also know that sometimes it's hard to find the time to exercise? If you just start a new sentence saying, finding time is difficult, it feels a bit abrupt. The reader might wonder, what does finding time have to do with exercise being good? But if you use however, you create a clear link. You could write, exercise is fantastic for your health. It helps you feel more energetic and can improve your mood. However, finding the time to exercise can be a real challenge for many people. See how that works. The word however signals to your reader, hold on, here comes a different idea, something that contrasts with what I just said. It doesn't cancel out the first idea. It just adds another layer, showing that you understand there are different sides to the story. This makes your writing much more thoughtful and balanced. Similarly, although does a similar job, but it often introduces an idea that is true despite something else. Let's say you're talking about a new movie. You could say, the movie had amazing special effects. The actors were also very good. That's fine. But if you want to show that even with these good points, there was a problem, you could use although. Although the movie had amazing special effects and the actors were very good, the story itself was quite confusing. Here, although acknowledges the good points but then introduces a contrasting weakness. It tells the reader, yes, there were good things, but here's a significant point that might change how you feel about it. It's like saying, yes, and but also this kind of nuance is what makes writing interesting and sophisticated. It shows you're not just presenting one simple view. Now, let's think about showing cause and effect. This is where words like therefore and consequently shine. They are like signposts that say, because of what I just said, this happened. Imagine you're explaining why it's important to save money. You might write, saving money regularly helps you prepare for unexpected expenses. You won't have to worry as much if your car breaks down. Again, these are two good sentences, but they feel a bit separate. If you use therefore, you make the connection crystal clear. Saving money regularly helps you prepare for unexpected expenses. Therefore, you won't have to worry as much if your car breaks down. The word therefore acts like a logical conclusion. It takes the first statement saving money helps prepare for expenses and shows its direct result you won't worry as much. It builds a strong, logical chain of thought. The reader understands that the second part is not just another random fact, but a direct outcome of the first. This is vital for persuasive writing. You're showing your reader why they should accept your point by clearly demonstrating the logical consequences. What specific relationship does a word like however signal to the reader, and how does this prevent confusion compared to simply starting a new sentence? When you simply start a new sentence after making a point, the reader has to pause and figure out if the next sentence is adding more information, offering an example, or introducing a completely different idea. It's like walking into a room and hearing two people talking about different things without any introduction. You're left wondering, are they talking about the same topic, or have they switched subjects? However, eliminates this guesswork. It explicitly tells the reader, the idea I'm about to share is related to the previous one, but it presents a contrast or an opposing point. It creates a mental bridge. Instead of a sharp turn, it's a gentle curve. This makes the flow of your writing much smoother and easier to follow. It prevents the reader from getting lost or confused, allowing them to absorb your ideas more effectively. It shows you've considered different angles, making your argument more robust and your writing more mature. Similarly, therefore signals a relationship of consequence or result. If you just state two facts, the reader might wonder if they are connected or just two separate observations. Using therefore makes it clear, the first statement is the reason or cause, and this second statement is the direct effect or result. This clarity is essential for building a strong, logical argument. It helps the reader see the why behind your statements, making your overall message more convincing. Let's consider how these words enhance sentence complexity and sophistication. When we're beginners, we often write in short, simple sentences. This is perfectly fine for clarity, but it can sometimes make writing sound a bit basic or choppy. Linking words allow us to combine these shorter sentences into longer, more interesting ones, creating a richer texture. Instead of writing, "The weather was bad. We decided to stay inside. We played board games." You can combine these using linking words to create something more dynamic. The weather was bad, so we decided to stay inside and played board games. Here, so shows the cause bad weather and effect staying inside, and connects the two actions taken indoors. This single sentence now carries more information and flows more smoothly than three separate ones. Or, consider this, she studied hard. She passed the exam. We can make this more sophisticated by showing the direct link. She studied hard, therefore she passed the exam. The semicolon, and therefore create a strong, formal connection, showing a clear logical progression. This ability to weave ideas together into more complex structures is a hallmark of strong writing. It shows you can manage multiple thoughts within a single sentence, demonstrating a deeper understanding of how ideas relate to each other. How does using therefore to connect two ideas create a stronger, more persuasive argument than presenting them as separate statements? When you present two statements separately, like the company's profits increased significantly, they decided to give employees a bonus, the reader might infer a connection, but it's not guaranteed. They might think, oh, that's nice for the employees, but the link isn't explicitly made. However, when you connect them with therefore, the company's profits increased significantly. Therefore, they decided to give employees a bonus. You are building a powerful logical argument. You are telling the reader, this is the cause and this is the undeniable effect. The second statement becomes a direct consequence of the first, making the decision to give bonuses seem not just like a random act of kindness, but a logical and justified outcome of the company's success. This makes your writing more persuasive because you are clearly demonstrating the reasoning behind events or decisions. You are showing the reader the logical path you have taken, making it easier for them to follow and agree with your conclusions. It's like building a case with clear evidence and a logical conclusion, rather than just presenting a series of facts. These linking words don't just make your writing sound better, they make it easier for your reader to understand. When you clearly signal the relationship between your ideas, you are doing the reader a favor. You are helping them navigate your thoughts without getting lost. Think about those confusing instructions Leo was struggling with. If I had said, first, preheat the oven. This is important because it ensures the cake bakes evenly. Then, you can mix the dry ingredients. After that, you should cream the butter and sugar. Leo would have understood the sequence and the reasons behind it much more easily. Each step would have been connected to the next, building a clear path for him to follow. In essence, these small words are the architects of clarity and flow in our writing. They are the tools that allow us to move beyond simple statements and build intricate, persuasive, and engaging pieces of text. They help us show, rather than just tell, how our ideas fit together, creating a richer and more rewarding experience for our readers. By understanding the distinct roles of words like however, therefore, and although, we've seen how they act as essential tools for building clear, logical, and sophisticated connections. In the next section, we will dive deeper into the specific categories of these linking words and explore how to choose the perfect one for any given situation to ensure your writing flows with maximum impact. 4. Creating better flow and more complex sentences. There was a time, not so long ago, when my writing felt like many small islands. Each sentence was like its own piece of land, separate and alone, with big empty spaces between them. I would write one thought, finish it, and then, after a big pause, start a whole new one. It was like talking to someone, but stopping for a full minute after every single word. The ideas were there, you see. I had them all in my head. But getting them from my head onto the paper in a way that made sense, that felt joined and alive, was very hard. It was annoying. I would read what I wrote and it felt choppy, like a robot talking. It did not have a good sound, it did not feel smooth, and honestly, it was a bit boring to read. I knew I wanted to say more, to explain things better, but my sentences just would not work together. They were too short, too plain, and too by themselves. Then, I found a simple but important idea: the power of joining words. These are not fancy, hard words. They are often very small, like and, but, or so. But when you learn to use them, and truly know what they do, they become like magic glue that holds your thoughts together. They are like bridges that connect those little islands of ideas, turning a scattered group into a smooth flowing path. They do not just stick things together, they show the reader how they are connected. Think of it like building a road. You do not just put down random bits of pavement. You build a road that connects town A to town B. And the kind of road you build tells you something about the trip. Is it a fast highway or a twisty, pretty road? Joining words do the same for your ideas. They show how one thought leads to the next, making your writing feel smooth and natural. This is what we mean when we talk about flow. Good flow means your reader does not have to stop and think, wait, how does this connect to what was just said? The joining words do that work for them. They are like a friendly helper, holding the reader's hand and leading them gently from one point to the next. When you use a joining word like however, you are not just adding another sentence. You are saying there is a change in direction, a difference. The reader expects something different, and the joining word gets them ready for it. Without it, the change can feel sudden, like suddenly stepping off a smooth path onto rough ground. It breaks the rhythm, and the reader might get lost or stop paying attention. Let's look at how these little words help us build what we call longer sentences. Now, longer does not mean hard or very long. It means showing a deeper, more detailed connection between ideas. Imagine you have two simple sentences. The sun was shining. I decided to stay inside. If you just put them next to each other, they feel a bit disconnected. Why would someone stay inside if the sun was shining? It is a bit confusing. But if you add a joining word, you can show the connection. You could say, the sun was shining, but I decided to stay inside. That, but right away tells us there is a difference. The shining sun would normally make you want to go out, but something else stopped you. Or, you could say, the sun was shining, so I decided to stay inside. This sounds a bit odd, doesn't it? The sun shining does not usually make someone stay inside. This shows us that picking the right joining word is very important. It is not just about connecting, it is about connecting in the right way. The good thing about joining words is that they let us show these small connections without having to write a whole explanation. Instead of writing two separate sentences and hoping the reader figures out the connection, one joining word can make it clear. For example, if you want to show that one thing happened because of another, you can use words like therefore or so. So, instead of, he studied hard. He passed the exam. You can write, he studied hard. Therefore, he passed the exam. See how that therefore creates a clear link of cause and effect. It shows that his studying was the reason for passing. The sentence becomes richer, tells us more, and is much more pleasing to read. It is like adding a layer of understanding that was not there before. This ability to weave ideas together is what makes writing go from just saying facts to creating an interesting story or a clear reason. It is about showing how your thoughts are linked, how one idea leads to another, or how different ideas are different from each other. When you get good at this, your writing does not just sound better. It is better because it tells us more clearly. It becomes a conversation, not just a list. To use joining words well, the first step is to ask yourself a very important question when you are writing. What is the exact link between the idea in the sentence I just wrote and the idea I am about to write? Are these two ideas alike? Are they different? Does the second idea happen because of the first? Is the second idea an example of the first? Or is it a completely new point that adds to the first? Answering this question is like looking at a map before you start a trip. It helps you choose the right path. Let's take an example. Suppose you have written, the experiment was hard to set up. Now you want to add another idea. You might think about what comes next. Maybe the next idea is, it needed very exact measurements. How do these two ideas connect? The second idea explains why the experiment was hard to set up. It adds more information, it explains more. So, you could connect them with a word that shows adding more or explaining. You could say, the experiment was hard to set up and it needed very exact measurements. Or, you could use a word that shows a more specific kind of addition, like furthermore. The experiment was hard to set up. Furthermore, it needed very exact measurements. Now, think about a different second idea. The team managed to finish it on time. How does this connect to the experiment was hard to set up? Here, there is a clear difference. Even though it was hard, they still finished. So, the joining word needs to show this difference. You would not use and or furthermore. You would use a word like however or nevertheless. So, you would write, the experiment was hard to set up. However, the team managed to finish it on time. This, however, tells the reader that even though the setup was hard, something good happened. It creates a feeling of a challenge and then solves it. making the writing more interesting. This process of asking about the link between ideas is very important. If you do not ask, you might just put in a joining word that does not quite fit. For example, imagine you wrote, "The dog barked loudly. It was hungry." If you connect these with therefore, you get, "The dog barked loudly, therefore it was hungry." This makes sense. Hunger can make a dog bark. But what if you wrote, "The dog barked loudly. It was a sunny day"? If you connect these with therefore, you get, "The dog barked loudly, therefore it was a sunny day." This does not make any sense at all. The sunny day did not cause the dog to bark. Here, a joining word that shows a difference or simply adds information might be better, or perhaps two separate sentences are best if there is no clear link. This brings us to the second question for thinking. If I took out the joining word, would the reader still understand the connection, or would the writing feel sudden and confusing? This is a great way to check yourself. Try reading your sentences out loud, both with and without the joining word. If taking it out makes the connection unclear or the jump between ideas feels sudden and awkward, then the joining word is probably doing its job well, and you have likely chosen the right one. If taking it out makes no difference, or if the sentence still feels a bit clumsy, then the joining word might not be needed, or perhaps the wrong one was used. Let's think about that choppy writing I mentioned before, those little islands of sentences. When I started to use joining words on purpose, it was like building paths and roads between those islands. Suddenly, the trip from one thought to another became smooth. It was not just about making sentences longer. It was about making them mean more. A sentence like "the weather was bad, we stayed home" is easy to understand, but it is a bit plain. When you add a joining word to show the cause and effect, it becomes, "The weather was bad, so we stayed home." This is more direct, works faster, and it clearly shows the connection. So acts as a very clear bridge. Or consider this: she practiced for hours. She still felt nervous. Without a joining word, these are just two statements. But with although, we get, she practiced for hours, although she still felt nervous. This one word, although, completely changes the meaning. It shows that even though she worked hard, a feeling still stayed. It adds a level of detail and feeling that was not there before. It tells us something about her experience, her feelings, and the situation. This is the power of showing the connection between ideas. We can put these joining words into different groups based on the job they do. Some words help us add more information, like and, also, furthermore, moreover. Others help us show a difference, like but, however, although, yet, nevertheless. Then we have words that show cause and effect, like therefore, consequently, so, because. There are also words that introduce examples, like for example, for instance, and words that help us finish, like in conclusion, to sum up. Knowing these groups is like having a box of tools. When you need to connect two ideas, you can look in your toolbox and pick the right tool for that job. For people who are just starting, it can feel a bit much at first. You might worry about using the wrong word. But the best way to learn is by doing and by paying attention. As you read, notice how other writers use these words. When you see a joining word, stop for a moment and ask yourself, what connection is this word showing? How does it link the ideas? Does it make the writing flow better? The goal is not to fill your sentences with joining words. That can make your writing sound just as unnatural as having no joining words at all. It is about using them with thought and purpose, where they truly help to make the connection between your ideas clear. Think of them as a little bit of spice for your writing. A little bit can make it taste better, but too much can spoil the food. When you start to think about the connection between your ideas before you link them, you begin to write with more purpose. You are not just putting words on paper, you are guiding your reader through a path of thought. You are showing them the links, the reasons, the differences. This is how you move from simple, choppy sentences to writing that flows beautifully, that feels smart, and that truly communicates complex ideas clearly and with power. It is about building those bridges, making the journey between your thoughts easy and enjoyable for your reader. Now that we understand how joining words create this important flow and build longer sentence structures, the next important step is to look at the specific kinds of connections these words can show, allowing us to choose the perfect connector for any idea. Conclusion: we are at the end of our writing trip. We wanted to learn how to make writing smoother, more interesting, and sound smart. The main idea we learned is about linking words. These small words are very important. They help connect our thoughts so our writing makes sense. They are like bridges between sentences. Words like but show a change. Words like so show a result. Words like even though show a different idea. These words help the reader follow along. Imagine writing without these words. Sentences would be like separate islands. The reader would have to guess how they connect. This can be hard to read. But when we use linking words, writing becomes smooth. It flows like a river. This makes your writing sound smart. It's not about using big words. It's about showing you can explain ideas clearly. Linking words show how ideas are related. They show if ideas are alike, different, or cause and effect. This makes writing easy to understand and more convincing. Linking words also make writing interesting. They make the reader want to know what comes next. They help build bigger ideas from smaller ones. Knowing about linking words is good. But the real change comes when you use them. Think of linking words as tools for writing. You need different tools to build something. The more you use them, the better you get. It's the same with writing. When you write your next message, think about how your ideas connect. Ask yourself, how did these ideas fit together? Look for places to add a linking word. If one idea leads to another, use so. If you have two different ideas, use but. Don't be afraid to try different words. See how they change what you mean. You can also look at your old writing. Find places where you can add or change linking words. This will help you learn. Make it a habit to think about how your ideas connect. Soon, using linking words will feel natural. As you keep practicing, your writing will get much better. You will feel more sure of yourself when you write. You can share your ideas clearly and nicely. This is not just for school or work. It's about sharing your thoughts with others in a way they can understand. Writing is a journey. Learning to connect your ideas well is a big step. Being able to link ideas smoothly and clearly will help you in everything you do. So, use these important small words. Let them help you connect your ideas. Let your writing shine.